Yes, we are live now. Good luck.
Thank you.
Welcome. Let's start.
Okay, should we start already?
Yes.
All right, well then welcome to everybody who's participating in this live stream on Universal Design for Learning. My name is Loredana Giovanelli. I'm a teacher trainer, academic consultant, a teacher, and many other things. I want to thank, first of all, the International Internship University for the opportunity of speaking about this important topic, and Dr. Andrew for inviting me, and Dr. Pandit, and Mr. Pandit, sorry. This is an overview of of a longer workshop on Universal Design for Learning. So it's just an overview, and it doesn't have everything as in how to implement it in the classroom and what to do. But I hope this overview will give you at least an idea of what Universal Design for Learning is. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen already with you. And one of the things I want to show is that the purpose of this webinar is to, first of all, we're going to share experiences I know that I cannot see you right now on Facebook, but I would love people to write down their experiences about Universal Design for Learning. If you had any experiences, if you have ever heard of it, if you have used it somehow in the classroom, and so on and so forth, how you felt, if your school supports your Universal Design for Learning, if your school is not supporting it, so what can we do to do that? And anything that you would like to share with us on Facebook would be great. If I may ask to share the link for Facebook so that I can share it with my people, and maybe they can also participate in this discussion. So the purpose of this is to basically provide you with an overview of the purpose of UDL. It's a big topic, and it's one of my favorite topics because it's very important, especially nowadays that we have so many classes that are diverse classes and they need to be all inclusive, and UDL is perfect for that. I want to share with you the three main components and principles of UDL, which are basically the guidelines to design any units, any lesson plans, and the classrooms. Present you with the guidelines of UDL, and identify the benefits of UDL, which you will do basically yourself. The implementation of UDL in the classroom is a self-reflection that we will have at the end of this webinar. So let's start right away with sharing your experiences before we go into the information about UDL. So if I can ask my host to give me an idea of what the people are writing as comments, that will help me give some feedback right away. So I'm going to give 5 minutes to the people on Facebook to share their experiences with UDL, Universal Design for Learning. And is my co-host here with me right now?
Is there? I'm hearing you.
Thank you. Do you have the opportunity to see on Facebook what the participants are writing?
Okay, 1 minute.
So that I can have an idea about what they are sharing with us. To be honest with you all, it is the first time that I do a live stream on Facebook, and so I cannot really see what's happening on Facebook right now because I'm in full sharing of the PPT that I have for you today.
Yes, everything is good. We have so many participants.
Okay, so if you don't mind sharing with me what they're writing, because I cannot see.
Yes.
And if you can send me the link to Facebook, can you do that in the chat group over here in the Zoom meeting?
Please continue, and I write you in the Zoom chat, okay?
Okay, I cannot see the Zoom chat at the moment, but thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the first important part of the UDL, which is the purpose of UDL. The purpose of UDL is basically I'm not going to read for you because you guys can read, and you know how people don't like presenters to read, which is definitely not one of the things people should do. I always use this image, these pictures, to represent the purpose of UDL, because it's exactly what it means. So if you notice in this picture, it's all about removing barriers. And this person on the wheelchair says, "Could you please shovel the ramp?" And the guy who's shoveling the snow says, "Well, there are other people waiting, so wait until I finish shoveling the snow on the steps, and then I'll help you." But he says, "But if you remove the snow on the ramp, everybody can use it. The ramp is not just for people on wheelchairs, they're for everybody. So if you clean that up, everybody can actually use it. And that saves not just time, but it's a smart way to see that how we can organize classrooms and how we can organize our units, not just for some students, but for all the students. So we want to remove the barriers. We don't want to create new ones by designing units who are unachievable and assessments that are extremely unachievable. So this is one of the major purpose of UDL is basically remove all the barriers from learning and give the opportunities to all learners, not just the good students, to succeed in the classroom. So it's, in a way, it's optimizing learning, as well as optimizing your lesson plans and your units. UDL is not just, somebody came up one day and I say, "I want to do this," but it's based on scientific knowledge of how we learn, not what we learn or why we learn, but mostly how we learn. In the how we learn, we have the what and the why, but the how is what makes us reflect during the learning process. And it makes the teachers reflect during the learning process, and it makes the students reflect during the learning process. And it also wants to build the flexibility so that it wants people as teachers and students to use different techniques that can be adjusted and adapted to every student's needs. And as I said, not just the good students that succeed in everything that they do. So we're focusing our attention to all learners, not just a group. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to work with you right now on showing you the three principles of UDL. And they're represented by the brain and by the section of the brain where this happens, okay? So the first principle is basically engagement. How do we engage our students? What do we do to engage their interests? How do we involve them in the class? How do we make them part of the unit and not just bystanders? So this is one of the things, is the why we are learning something, the why of learning. I don't know how many of you involve their students in the building of the unit plan. When I teach my kids, which is from grade 6 through 8, I have a lesson plan in mind. I have a main goal, and I have, since I teach IB, I have a theme, but I developed the skeleton of the theme, and I have the statement of inquiry and all the beautiful things. But once I present this and I make the students analyze the statement of inquiry, the related concept, and all the concepts, I ask the students what they need, what they want to add. And basically, I build around what they want to do, because our units must be important and relevant to our students. They cannot just be units that we like to do because they make us feel comfortable. We need to step out of the comfort zone. And in this case, we need to let the kids take action and be part of the creation of our unit plans. So UDL encourages all the teachers to look for multiple ways to encourage and motivate students. Also the ones that seem not motivated at all, they don't like to come to school, they don't like to study. There is something that they like to do. There is something that they feel that touches them. And that is what we need to figure out. And this should be done in the first 3 weeks of school, but that's something else. That's for another workshop altogether. If we find out what students like to do, are engaged in, and what their interests are, this will help the teachers to sustain the student interest during the unit, during the lessons, so that the students' interest will stay high all the time and not just would be high for some students and not high for others. So by providing different choices and we give the students agency, we empower students to be part of the learning process and not just the one sitting behind the desk. So providing different choices will allow students to select what they're more comfortable trying, and also what they're not comfortable trying, they might actually try them and see how it goes for them. So this was the first principle, which is engagement. And this is all about the beginning of your unit in a way. The second principle is representation. And this is where the second part, the part of the brain, which is in the back, I think, over here, right here. And it's the what of learning. So over here, the representation for resourceful, knowledgeable learners, it's to present information content in many different ways. So I don't know you, but I've seen many teachers that resort to the blackboard or the whiteboard, depending on what you're using, to just write down what they are doing. Or some teachers who don't write what they want to do in class, but they just say it out loud. So we all know the myth of learning, learning abilities, it's been debunked and everything. And so now we have how we can present all the information to the kids so that we can target all types of learners, and so that they can show preferences in the pattern that they use to learn. So for example, there are people that, for example, I need to see to learn, I need to practice to learn it. So I need to see written on the board and I need to do it. Some learners, though, they just listen to what you say and they're fine with it. They don't need to remember. Some people need visual support to learn. So to understand what you're doing, to understand the instructions. So this is basically the representation, how you present the information to the students, to the audience that you have in front. You're my audience today. You're my students. So for you, if you notice, I have a visual component, I have the written component, and I have the oral component, which is me blabbering away, right? So this is 3 forms that I found out to share with you. If I were giving you a workshop, I would probably also use my body language, because that's I gesticulate a lot and I do a lot of hand gestures to represent what I'm talking about. So UDL encourages all of you, all the teachers, to represent information in many different ways and not just the traditional one. I have friends that teach in Nigeria that, of course, don't have a lot of materials to support and don't have technology. So they have a blackboard. They still have actually the green board where they write with their chalk. So that's for them is something that they do all the time. Does that reach all the learners? Does that involve all the learners? Probably not, but they also have their voice, and they have paper pictures that they can use and put them on the board, so for all the kids to see. And of course, it all depends on the, how much do you have, how much the school is providing you with that you can use to bring different ways to represent what you want to say. So if you want to do visually, linguistically, audio, video, hands-on, everything is good to learn. I'm a hands-on person, so I need to try, especially when it comes to patterns that I need to repeat or math and something like that. I need to put it on paper. There's no one type of representation that is better than others. So visual representation is not the best of all. Linguistically, it's not the best of all. It's not the best of all, but put them all together, they become a powerful tool to reach out all your students and not just a selective few. Okay, so that was principle number 2, which is representation. And moving on to principle number 3, this is action and expression. And this is the how of learning. Action and expression is all about the students. This is them representing what they've learned through what they know how to do best, what they feel most comfortable with. So what are they going to do to represent what they've learned? Yes, it's still connected. Sorry, I was checking if my AirPods are connected, because I've started a new device, and it might have caught my headphones. So this action and expression is what the student are going to show and how they've learned. So as with instructions, we have used different tools, visual, linguistic, audio, etc. The students can do exactly the same thing. When they represent what they have learned, they will show it. They need to be allowed to show how they've learned in multiple ways. It could be a poster, it could be a podcast, it could be a comic, it could be a video, it could be a speech that they want to give. There's not a one solution for all that is the best. We need to allow students to explore their strength, work on their weaknesses, but they need to feel comfortable when they represent what they've learned throughout the unit, throughout the term, etc. So the kids need to feel free to interact with the material that they have worked with and to show what they've learned. And they need to feel free to choose how to show what they've learned. It's not you choosing, it's how would you like to represent what you've learned? That's the question. How would you like to do it? Why would you like to do it that way? We want to give students ownership of their learning. Otherwise, whatever we teach them goes in from one ear, comes out from the other one, never stays in the brain, and the next day they've forgotten everything, unless they're memorizing, which will last for 3 days and that's it. So in this case, we want to give ownership, agency to the students so that they can represent in their best way what they've learned throughout your classes and throughout the unit. There's several guidelines there are actually 9 guidelines that UDL gives, and each guideline, there are usually 3 per UDL principle, and so they turn into 9, and they stand for each one of the principles. So they're tangible suggestions that you can use in class that can be applied to any program, curriculum, courses, IGCSE, IB, Common Core. It doesn't really matter because they are tangible suggestions that you can use, concrete suggestions and not the theory, okay? So we're going to go and see some of them, not all of them, otherwise we'll never finish because this need to be, seen, practiced, studied in a way to see how you can implement those in the classroom. So let's take a look at these 9 principles. The first one is engagement guidelines. And the first one are providing option to recruiting interest. The second one is providing option to sustain the efforts and persistence. And the third one is to provide options for self-regulation, the time management that our students are not that great at, okay, especially in middle school. So the first one is to enhance the students' choice and autonomy. You want to recruit their interest. You want to entice them. You want to lure them in to your units. You want them to be the creators of the unit. You want them to feel part of the creation of the unit that you're doing. You want to promote relevance, value, and genuineness, meaning that you want to make sure that the unit you're doing is relevant and important to your students. There was one thing that my husband and doctor in philosophy and visual art professors told me one day, because I was joining social media a few years ago, and I said, what do I do? And he was like, you need to be relevant in social media. I said, what do you mean? You need to be there. You need to be constant. You need to be talking about something that interests your audience. You can't just post one thing and then forget about it. You need to be relevant, and what you need to, what you write needs to be important to people as much as it's important to you. That stuck with me so much that I repeat that in every workshop that I gave about unit planning. And so it has to be relevant and important to the audience, besides being relevant and important to you. Now, the second guideline is to provide options for sustaining the efforts and the persistence. So you need to elevate the goals and the objective. You don't just get stuck into one single goal or a single objective. Move on, add an extra one. Ask the students to provide you with a second goal, a third goal, and see how far you can go. You need to promote collaboration. This is like, it's the beautiful thing is I'm a big fan of many all the theorists in education, and collaboration with Vygotsky. It's absolutely a way to learn. The more you work with people, the more you learn from people, and the more you learn about what you have to do. Collaboration is an important thing. I don't like to use it's a teamwork because it's such an overused expression. A collaboration, when I ask my kids to collaborate, I then ask them to reflect on how they collaborated. Not what they did, but how they collaborated. What did they do? What obstacles did they find? Did they meet? How did they overcome them? So I want them to think about the collaboration they had. The third one is making learning relevant to students' need, which is I've already said so many times. It's what they want and what they need, especially nowadays. What do they really need to study? Do they really need to study every single thing that we used to study, at least in my time? No, because I remember that I used to study a lot of things that are useless to me today. I went on a completely different path, and our students will not follow, will not remember everything which they studied. They will remember the ones that interest them because it's where they want to go, and that's what they need. So for the third guideline, provide option for self-regulation. You need to set expectations, promote motivation, growth, self-assessment, reflection, supporting an acceptable classroom for everybody and not just for some. Let me move this up here. In this way, we're going to create motivated, future-ready learners. I'm not going to write future leaders because that's way too big, but definitely motivated, future-ready learners, because we want to make sure that they study because they want to study, not because they have to go to school. So here we go to the engagement for the next one, which is the representation guidelines. And we have 3 again. And the first one is provide option for perception, provide option for language and symbols, and provide option for comprehensions. And you can see here we have again 3 of each. And provide option for perception. This is basically how you are going to represent, or how they are going to represent. They're going to represent their learning. So they want to represent the text, the pictures, charts, whatever. It's the same thing we do. How do we represent what we want to say? Picture, text, charts, videos, sometimes gaming, gamification in school. I use Minecraft a lot in a unit on sustainability, which is in English. It's a language acquisition, and it's a unit on sustainability with Minecraft embedded and a lot of other computer things that the kids like to do. Provide information that reach all the learners. This is for us, but it's also for the students, because when they present their understanding, they need to reach all the learners, all their classmates, not just some of them. Provide alternatives for auditory and visual information. This is, if you have a diverse class, you might have students that have hearing issues, that might not hear very well or might not see well. So we have a hypervision or blind students. So how do we make them part of the learning? How do we make part of the sharing? We can't think about just people that can speak, talk, hear, and see, but also people that can't or can just a little. And so we need to give alternatives to what we usually do, and reach out, remove those barriers that impede the rest of the kids to actually learn in a meaningful way. The second one is provide options for language and symbol. We use symbols, we use language, explicitize your vocabulary. Don't just use big words. I never use big words for my kids. And if I have to use a big word, I make sure that they come up with a definition, they come up with some examples. We find out what it means, but not just memorize the word and understand what it is, because a word has many, many meanings. And so we need to make sure that our kids can understand what we're talking about, and we don't need to sound so high and mighty just because we use big words. Remember who you have in front of you. Of course, this is university. Well, the vocabulary, the kids, the young people at university need to already be aware of that particular vocabulary, which goes with a specific subject, right? And that goes for science. You have specific subject in science, specific language in science, in chemistry, in English, in history, in geography, and in PE, for example, physical education and art. So that vocabulary, that syntax, the symbols, the structure needs to be taught, cannot just be seen and understood. We need to facilitate understanding across languages and not just our own. And so that's a major thing for UDL. Background knowledge, this is for the third one, provide options for comprehension. Background knowledge activation. We all know that we need to activate background knowledge. How do we do it? Do we just ask, have you ever heard of it? Have you ever seen it? Maybe we can just stimulate the background knowledge by giving them a picture on the board or a picture on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be on a screen. And ask, what does it make you think of? How far can you go to know what that picture makes you think of? Emphasize the patterns, important features, ideas, relationships, push them to make connections. How is this connected to what else? What is the connection between this picture and something else? So for example, and finally, the transfer. Do they always transfer? No, they don't transfer naturally. We need to push them a little bit, especially the young ones, because transfer is not something that you do naturally. You need to think about it. So expanding transfer and general principle is something that we want to provide options for and that we want to push, because once they transfer their knowledge, they transfer their learning, that's a major step ahead in the learners. So here we go with what I have at the bottom is to create resourceful and knowledgeable, ready learners. People that already know what they want to present, how they want to present, they know where to find that information, they know how to use it in a video, for example. So for the next one, and it's the last one, action and expression guidelines, you want to provide 3 guidelines. Option for perception, option for language and symbols again, and provide for option for comprehension. So diversify the response and navigation method, offer ways of accessing tools and assistive technology. So these are the first 2 that you want to work on. Options for perception, diversify the response and the navigation method. Navigation method, that is how they find information, how they go about their learning. And offer ways of accessing tools, and technology that can assist your students in the process of expressing their understanding. The second one, language and symbol, again, communication media. How can they present? They can present via video. They have phones. Let them use the phones, computers, etc. Apply multiple constructions and composition tools. That could be written, that could be spoken, could be illustrated. It could be something that you do also with visual arts. That's a great way to communicate and a way to interact. And finally, develop a higher level of support for practice and performance. You want to support your kids all the time and push them to use what they know and make them feel comfortable and probe them a little bit to make them step out of their comfort zone sometimes. You want to, for the last one, provide options for comprehension, supervise appropriate goal setting, encourage the development of planning strategies. This is something that, kids sometimes don't do. They don't plan. They don't look at what strategy they can use. But this is something that we want them to be skilled at. We want to teach these skills. And provide ways to improve capacity to monitor progress. So they need to be able to see how they progress from where they were to where they are now today and where they are at the end of the year. That's why we use portfolios, right? We keep portfolios. We ask the students to create their portfolios so that they can see their progress and they can visualize it and they can actually, a tangible way to see, oh my God, I was here and look at where I am now. When I teach English, I usually ask them to create a portfolio in language and literature, in language acquisition, doesn't matter. I ask them for a portfolio because I want them to keep everything. And then in midterm or at the end of the first term, we'll go through the portfolio and I want them to create a chart to show basically where they were and where they are at that moment in time. And that's a self-reflection. And it's also, the teacher can help, but mostly it's done. I always make them work in groups. So I like them to discuss this, where they were. Look at where I was, look at where you were. and compare. They can also compare each other. It doesn't matter as long as the comparison is a constructive one. So you want to create, in this case, strategic and goal-directed, future-ready expert learners, so that they create a strategic plan. They have a plan, first of all, and that's where personal project and community project in IB are very useful. And the project-based learning is extremely useful because it's all about planning the project, redesign the project, think about it. How is it going well? How is it not going well? What strategy should we use? What strategy didn't work and why it didn't work? So for everything they do, they need to look at the how did it go? Why didn't it go? Why did it go? What else could we have done? What else can we do? How can we bring this further and not just for the end of the activity? I hope everything is in a way clear. I think it is a lot to assimilate in such a short time, but I hope this is at least giving you a background information of UDL and what the steps that need to be taken to help our students become expert learners in the end. So for the 3 UDL guideline summary, here we go. We have multiple options for engagement to foster interest, to sustain the effort, and to support the self-regulation, the famous time management. We have multiple options for representation, multiple perception, multiple language, and effective comprehension. And we have multiple options for action and expression, which is our students. This is the part where our students work. Increased physical action, they can represent with a skit. The sky's the limit. We can involve drama. We can involve the drama teacher and work with us to represent their learning. We can involve the physical education teachers and help us with the physical action part. Stimulate communication, and finally develop executive functions, which are much more, they are higher in level of skill, because it's planning, developing a project and executing the project, reevaluating, thinking, going back, going forward, and maybe choose something completely different because that doesn't work out. So we need to be open to those type of basically executive decisions in a way. All right, I hope this is okay so far. Let's go to the next one. The benefits of UDL. Now, I want you to think about students you have in your classroom. And I want you to think about how UDL could benefit them. This is your self-reflection. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I have 3 minutes for this. It's already 31 minutes of me talking. And this is the time for you to take a pen and a notebook, a piece of paper, anything. And I want you to write down the name of some of your students that you see always withdrawn, or they're having issues, or they want to work alone. And I want you to think about how can UDL benefit those students, those kids. I usually call my students, my kids, students is so impersonal. And so I want you to think about that. And I want you to write in your notebook, really write in your notebook, the name of the student, and next to it, how UDL could benefit that specific kid. I'm going to give you 3 minutes for now. And so I'm going to be quiet for 3 minutes and let you think. If you want to, sorry, before I close my mouth, before you start, if you want to write in the chat box of Facebook the benefits of integrating UDL in the classroom, please go ahead and really write down how UDL could benefit your students and in your classroom and your unit. So from now, 3 minutes of silence for me, and I'd like you to reflect and think and really write down what you feel will be the benefits of the UDL in your classroom. If some of you want to share in the chat box, I have my my co-pilot here with me from the International Internship University that would be more than happy to share with me out loud what are the things that you guys are writing on Facebook. So that would be a great feedback for me to know how you have identified the benefits of UDL for your students and your classes. My co-pilot is still here, and she has the power.
I'm with you. Your participants write great session, super amazing.
Thank you.
I'm glad so that much. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, thank you all for being here and listen to me blabbering away. UDL is one of my.
We have so from India, from Georgia, from Kenya, from Philippines, from Nigeria.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for being so patient. And I know that this is a lot of information, and I hope it helps, and I hope it gives you an idea. You can find a lot of things on UDL online, but of course, having a training on UDL and how to implement it in class is always much better because it's hands-on, and it could benefit the teachers and the students eventually. Are they writing, for example, anything about the benefits that they are seeing by integrating UDL in their classroom? Is anybody sharing their thoughts with us?
No, only thank you so much, and all participants thankful and very happy.
Thank you. Do they have any questions? Do you see any questions about this?
Yes, but
if there is a question, if there are questions, please go ahead and share them with me, and I'll be happy to answer. I'm going to give them one more minute, and then we're going to go towards the closing of this presentation, which is between 40 and 45 minutes. So that's why I was going fairly fast through the slides. If you notice here, I'm adding visual and little illustrations because Canva gives me the opportunity to do a lot of the things that I like to do with my kids. And my PowerPoints are never dull, serious, excuse me, PowerPoints, but there's like a lot of writing. Of course, there was a fair amount of writing, but that's because I needed to give it to you. And this is one of the things that one of these slogans, until learning has no limits, which is what I like the most from UDL. Any questions that you see that are necessary, they need an answer, particularly curious about?
We have not question, but all participants. Right, thank you. Nice session.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for all these nice words and compliments. Thank you to my co-pilot for this. And okay, so basically, I want you to think, we have a few minutes left, and I'm going to give you my experience with the UDL, which is basically embedded in my units all the time. I have a student in my student language acquisition phase of 5, grade 8, who is some autistic, not complete autistic, but mild level of autism and Asperger's syndrome. It's a lot in there. And but this kid is very smart, and some of the things that he doesn't want to do, not that he can't do, but it doesn't want to do, is sometimes work alone, and time management for him is a big issue. And so we work with the supportive department, and they help him with that. They give him I give him extra time outside of class. They can work with him, etc. But this is what basically I provide him with whatever he needs to do. He wants to write on a paper that has no line, that's fine with me. He wants to write a computer all the time, that's fine with me too. He wants to represent this via a song that he likes to play, fantastic. It doesn't really matter how he wants to represent it, what he learned, how he learned it. as long as he represents it. So for me, he's comfortable. Let's see, for me, make him feel comfortable and good with himself is the most important thing. And sharing it with the group before sharing it in front of the whole class is the next step, right? You want them, you say, okay, share with the class. But not everybody likes to stand up and speak in front of a crowd. Let's think about it. I was one of them, and I'm presenting today. I never raised my hand. I never wanted to participate in Italy, the traditional school in the 80s, right? So we didn't do group work. We just went to school, learned, and went home. But today, we want kids to work in pair, in groups. Don't make groups more than 4 people, because 4 is a perfect number. 3, 4, that's it. 5 is a big number. So you want them to present how they learned, what they learned, their work, their expression, their action to their group first, because that's already a small audience. And then bring that to a bigger audience, because they've already had their moment of fame in front of 3 kids, right? That could judge him, evaluate him, and give him feedback so that he can improve before it goes in front of an entire crowd, an entire classroom of 20, 24 students, right? They look at you and, you're in front of them and you think, oh my God, they think I'm stupid. They think this is a lame PowerPoint. They think this is, I'm making mistakes. There's so many things that go on their mind while they're presenting. And we want to make sure that when they're there, they're comfortable, and they shouldn't care what their classmates think. They need to care about themselves. And giving them the steps, presenting your group first, present it to another person second, go to another group and present, go to another group and present, and then present to the whole class. That's, the steps, one little by little. So we come to a conclusion of this short webinar. I want to thank you all. I want to thank Dr. Anju again for inviting me, Mr. Pandit, and sir, and I want to thank my co-pilot for helping me at the beginning before we all join in this sharing of Universal Design for Learning. Below is my email. You can reach me at that email. If you have any questions, please let me know. There's also my website over there to EduPro Advisor. If you want to talk to me about something you're doing in your classroom, if you want suggestions, idea, or if you have a question. Here is another image of UDL, representation, engagement, representation, action, and expression. And if you notice, they are interconnected circles because they share all the time. And it's a circle. So it never ends. It's not finished because it goes around and you engage again, and you represent again, and you express yourself, and you express yourself again in different ways. So this is all for me. Right there, my email. If you need me, I'm thankful to all of you for participating and for being present on Facebook and live streaming. And I hope to see you again soon in another presentation of something that you're interested in. Thank you very much to everybody.